In the year 3994 BBY, a boy was born in the Outer Rim, destined to change the course of galactic history. Despite his mysterious origins, the Jedi Order quickly took him in, recognizing his exceptional Force abilities. Revan, as he would come to be known, showed unparalleled talent, surpassing his peers and earning the favor of the Jedi Masters, even catching the attention of the High Council. His thirst for knowledge was insatiable, constantly seeking out the wisdom of his mentors. Alongside his close friend and fellow Jedi, Malak, Revan rose through the ranks, eventually becoming a Jedi Knight. Though Revan was more powerful, intelligent, and charismatic, Malak provided him with a balanced partnership. Together, they excelled, with Revan's leadership propelling them forward. But even as they became knights, the galaxy was on the brink of turmoil, and Revan's journey would soon take a darker turn. His defiance of the Jedi Council's passive stance against the Mandalorian threat led him to take drastic measures, igniting the Revanist movement and setting the stage for the chaos that would follow. The Mandalorian Wars ignited across the galaxy as a warrior culture launched a relentless invasion, pushing into the Republic's space. The Jedi Council, fearing the dark path war might lead them down, chose to remain neutral despite the mounting suffering. Revan, deeply outraged, rejected their inaction and rallied those who believed the Jedi should fight to protect the Republic. Among them was his closest ally, Malak, who joined his cause, forming the group known as the Revanists. Determined to show the Council the true horror of the Mandalorian assault, Revan led a mission to the moon of Dixon, where he witnessed the brutal atrocities committed by the invaders. Despite his findings, the Council refused to intervene. As the Republic spiraled into chaos, Revan's resolve hardened. His cause gained widespread support, with the media painting him as a hero who stood for action when the Jedi would not. His journey was one of defiance, the weight of a galaxy in turmoil pressing down on him, shaping him into a figure whose legacy would change the course of history. His rise gave the movement its unshakable identity, and the galaxy began to see him as a fiery savior of the Republic. By then, he was no longer a lone dissenter, but the beating heart of a cause, restless with the Council's silence as the Mandalorian threat spread like a shadow. He crossed the stars, words like fire on his tongue, pulling more and more Jedi into his orbit. When one of them led him to the wasted silence of Cathar, the truth cut deep, an entire world left as a graveyard, its people erased. He brought others to see, hoping the empty winds would scream louder than his voice ever could. Then came Sirocco, burned from the sky in a storm of fire, and from across the stars he felt the shock of lives extinguished in an instant. Something broke within him that day, something that would never heal. Forging a vow sharper than any blade, the Mandalorians had to be stopped, no matter the cost. But even as his will hardened into steel, the Council's patience thinned, and the order that bound them all began to turn its gaze back on him. On the planet Cathar, Revan, now going by Captain Malak, stood defiant against the Jedi Masters of the Council who had come to detain him and end the Revantist movement. What began as a tense confrontation took an unexpected turn when Revan uncovered a Mandalorian mask buried in the sand. The moment his fingers touched it, a Force vision gripped him and the Jedi present. They were transported to a time long past, witnessing a brutal massacre of the Cathar people at the hands of the Mandalorians. As they watched helplessly, one Mandalorian soldier, filled with remorse, pleaded for mercy, only to be met with cold indifference from his commander. The massacre continued, and the soldier chose to die alongside the Cathar, his body sinking beneath the waves. The mask, now in Revan's hands, was the fallen soldier's comm, and with it came a vow he would wear it until the Mandalorians were brought to justice, a pledge that would resonate across the galaxy for years to come. The Jedi Council could no longer ignore the brutality of the Mandalorians after the horrific massacre on Cathar. This event shifted the tides, prompting the Council to allow Revan more freedom, though they still officially opposed his path. The Mandalorian atrocity silenced any further debate. While the Council didn't want to drag the entire order into war, they also feared losing too many Jedi to Revan's cause, one that might ultimately lead them to darkness. Revan proposed a compromise. Let the Revanists join the Republic military, not as Jedi, but as a Mercy Corps military-backed but not officially involved. Under pressure from both the public and their own guilt, the Council reluctantly agreed. Revan now had an army, a cause, and the green light to fight. As the Mandalorian Wars escalated, Revan and his fellow Jedi were no longer mere advisors, they were warriors, fighting side by side with soldiers across the galaxy. Among them, Mitrari stood out as one of Revan's most trusted and capable lieutenants. Revan's reputation grew, with his military successes earning the Republic's admiration. In 3962B, he and Malak turned the tide of the Battle of Duro, earning the notice of the Senate. Revan's victories painted him as a supreme leader, destined to change the course of history. In a decisive move that would change the course of the war, the Supreme Chancellor appointed Revan as the Supreme Commander of the Republic forces, granting him control over a third of the military. This unprecedented power placed in the hands of a single Jedi raised few objections. After all, Revan was winning the war. With his new title and immense authority, the Republic began to push the Mandalorians back. However, the war began to take its toll on Revan. He and Malak adopted a brutal, no-holds-barred approach to warfare, where victory became the sole priority. Morality and the lives of civilians were no longer their concern. They employed any tactics necessary to end battles swiftly, even if it meant sacrificing entire worlds. Their methods grew colder, and the line between them and the enemy blurred. They were no longer fighting like Jedi, they were fighting to win, even if it meant becoming just as ruthless as the Mandalorians. In this darkening period, Revan and Malak stumbled upon an ancient ruin near the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine, left behind by the extinct Rakata species. Inside, they found a star map, a device revealing part of the location of a mysterious space. Despite Malak's hesitation, fearing the consequences from the Jedi Council, Revan pushed forward, abandoning the teachings of the Jedi in favor of his own ambition. This discovery would shape their future, pushing them further down the path toward the dark side. A hidden station known as the Starforge set the stage for a journey that spiraled deeper into darkness. The search led to another star map concealed in the shadow depths of Kashyyyk, but the war raging across the galaxy left no time to pursue the rest. The most fateful turn came on Malachor V, a world steeped in corruption, where an ancient academy whispered forgotten secrets. Eager to learn, the once noble warrior embraced its teachings, slowly bending to their shadow and sharing the path with his closest ally. Though fallen, they still marched beneath the Republic's banner, cloaked as Jedi, leading armies into brutal battles where blood and sacrifice stained every victory. Worlds burned, soldiers fell by the thousands, and the line between salvation and ruin blurred with every strike. In the midst of devastation, a new weapon was forged in secret, a creation born not of hope, but of despair, a power that promised to end the war, no matter the cost. In the midst of the Mandalorian Wars, a brilliant strategist develops a weapon capable of manipulating the unstable gravitational fields of Malachor's atmosphere. This device could change the course of the war. The plan was simple: set a trap using the mass shadow generator in the Malachor system, with General Surik commanding half the fleet as bait to draw the Mandalorians into position. Meanwhile, Revan and the rest of the fleet would target Mandalore's flagship directly. As the Mandalorians arrived, the two fleets collided in a fierce battle above Malachor. Mandalore, leader of the Mandalorians, soon realized his forces were doomed. In desperation, he issued a final challenge, an ancient tradition of the Mandalorians, a one-on-one duel to the death. Revan accepted, and aboard Mandalore's flagship, the two leaders faced off. Though Mandalore was a formidable warrior, Revan's superior skill prevailed. As Mandalore lay dying, he removed his mask and confessed that he hadn't started the war by choice, but had been manipulated by a Sith. A red-skinned Sith had lured him into uncovering an ancient tomb on the ice planet of Rekad, planting the idea of war. With his last breath, Mandalore provided Revan with coordinates to prove his claims, leaving Revan to ponder the true nature of the conflict that had consumed the galaxy. Was there a greater threat waiting in the shadows? The mask was torn away, carried off as the Mandalorian fell into despair, their forces driven back to the edge of Malachor V. At the fateful command, the mass shadow generator roared to life, a monstrous gravity field ripping thousands of ships, Republic and Mandalorian alike, down into the planet's surface. They weren't just destroyed, they were crushed, shredded, erased in an instant. The ground itself fractured, the world becoming a shattered graveyard, barely clinging together by violent anomalies. From afar, he heard the screams of countless voices, a wave of fear and agony that was silenced just as swiftly. The Mandalorian were annihilated, their survivors surrendering without hope, and the war was declared over. His vow had been fulfilled, yet the cost was more than any Jedi could bear, for millions had perished by his hand. In the aftermath, their warriors were stripped of weapons, their mighty war droids dismantled, their symbol of unity withheld. Without it, they scattered into mercenaries and hunters, broken and leaderless. This was the end of the Mandalorian Wars, and the rise of something far darker. The galaxy trembled after the devastating disaster at Malachor. While the Republic triumphed, the Jedi who fought in the war had drifted far from their path. The Jedi Council called upon the Jedi from the Revanist movement to stand trial for their war crimes, but only one, Mitrorik, returned. Haunted by the death she witnessed from the activation of the mass shadow generator, she severed herself from the Force and came to face judgment. Revan, Malak, and their followers, however, refused to answer the call, fleeing into the unknown regions, claiming to pursue remnants of the Mandalorians. Malak, bent on eliminating any threats, wanted Revan to strike down Saruk for defying them, but Revan dismissed her as no longer a threat, believing she was dead to the Force. Revan's thoughts were consumed by the words of Mandalore, which had lingered since their last duel. His curiosity now led him and Malak to the frozen planet Rekiad, where, hidden among twin ice formations, they uncovered a tomb of an ancient Sith Lord. There, a datacron revealed a clue that would change everything, a world called Indhema, pointing to the true architect behind the Mandalorian Wars. Determined to uncover the truth, Revan and Malak knew they had to leave the Republic behind. Before departing the tomb, Revan hid Mandalore's mask, believing it would never be claimed again. Since embracing the path of the Sith, Malak grew harsher than ever, burning with the desire to surpass his master. When he commanded a devastating orbital strike that reduced an entire world to ashes, it clashed with Revan's vision of conquest rather than annihilation. Though indifferent to the fallen, Revan saw the act as wasteful, for his true aim was not to erase the Republic, but to reshape it, believing only through Sith teachings could it withstand the looming shadow of the Emperor. For that, he needed control, not rubble. To tighten his grip, he unleashed his assassin droid to eliminate political figures and struck deals with corporations to fuel his war machine. Jedi who yielded were bent into Sith. Those who resisted were destroyed. Yet as power swelled, so too did discord. On his own flagship, Apprentice turned on Master, branding him weak, sparking a vicious duel that ended with Malak's jaw torn away by Revan's blade. Surviving only through metal and machinery, Malak became a scarred symbol of betrayal, mocked by the assassin droid's infamous nickname, a cruel joke that Revan ordered to echo at the expense of every living being. They arrived on Nathema, a barren world that immediately drained them of energy. The planet, completely void of the Force, was a harsh introduction to the harsh reality they now faced. As they recovered, they uncovered the dark history of Vitiate, a Sith Lord who had drained the planet's life force in 499 BY through a forbidden ritual, granting him immortality and power beyond imagination. Over time, Vitiate declared himself the Sith Emperor, secretly rebuilding the Sith from the ground up after the old Empire fell. This shocking discovery revealed that the Sith were not extinct as they once thought, and worse yet, the Sith Emperor seemed to be behind the recent Mandalorian aggressions. Revan and Malak, determined to stop him, followed the trail to Drummond CAs, posing as mercenary. For months, they infiltrated the Sith Empire, learning of the Emperor's plan to invade the Republic. But their pride and overconfidence clouded their judgment. With the aid of Yari, a seemingly loyal Imperial Guard, they launched an assault on the Emperor's citadel, believing they could face him alone. What they didn't know was that Yari had led them into a trap. In the throne room, the Emperor didn't fight. Instead, he crushed their minds with ease, enslaving them and remaking them as Sith under his control. With that, Vitiate sent them back, his hold on them now unbreakable. Revan and Malak's journey led them to the desolate planet of Nathema, where they encountered a sensation unlike any they had ever felt: pain. The planet was devoid of the Force, leaving them powerless and vulnerable. But their discovery of an ancient Sith Lord, Vitiate, shook them to their core. In 499 BY, Vitiate had performed a dark ritual that drained the planet of all life, absorbing its power to become immortal and declaring himself Sith Emperor. He rebuilt the Sith Empire from the ashes, a secret legacy thought long extinct. Even worse, this immortal emperor was behind the Mandalorian aggression threatening the galaxy. Determined to stop him, Revan and Malak tracked the remnants of his Sith to Drummond CAs. Disguised as mercenaries, they infiltrated the Sith Empire and uncovered the Emperor's plan to invade the Republic. Their confidence and arrogance led them to believe they could face the Emperor alone. With the help of Yari, an Imperial guard who seemed sympathetic to their cause, they attempted to storm the Emperor's citadel. However, they were walking into a trap. The Emperor had control over all of his guards, and Yari betrayed them, leading them straight into his grasp. Confronted by the Emperor in his throne room, they found themselves powerless. Without lifting a finger, Viziate overwhelmed their minds, enslaving them to his will and transforming them into Sith under his command, sending them back to the darkness they had once fought to escape. Malak's transformation into a Sith was nothing short of brutal, as his thirst for power grew, especially in his quest to overthrow Revan. Their conflict ignited when Malak ordered an orbital bombardment on Telos 4, a world Revan had planned to capture, not destroy. The planet was left in ruins, marking a tragedy that became one of the defining moments of the Jedi Civil War. While Revan was indifferent to the loss of life, he saw the destruction as a setback in his larger mission. His true goal wasn't to annihilate the Republic, but to reform it, preparing it for the looming threat of the Emperor. Revan believed that the Sith teachings were the most effective means to achieve this transformation. Yet, to carry out his plans, he needed the Republic to submit willingly. To undermine it further, Revan used his assassin droid HK-47 to assassinate key political figures. He formed an alliance with Chura Corporation, granting them economic influence on conquered worlds in exchange for logistical support. Revan's focus shifted to converting Jedi into Sith, with only those who resisted meeting death. However, even Sith alliances are fraught with tension, and a rift with Malak was inevitable. On Revan's flagship, Malak accused his master of weakness, and a duel ensued. Revan triumphed, severing Malak's jaw, leaving him to speak only with a prosthetic. This moment marked the beginning of Revan's droid HK-47, referring to Malak as a meat bag, a term Revan found so amusing that he had the droid apply it to all organic beings. At the peak of the conflict, with the Republic desperate, a risky plan was set in motion to capture or eliminate Revan, the mastermind behind the war. In 3957 BY, the Jedi Council lured Revan into a trap using a fleet as bait in the Outer Rim. Revan took the bait, and a Jedi strike team, led by Bastila Shan, boarded his flagship. Just as Revan prepared to confront them, his apprentice Malak fired on his ship, aiming to kill Revan and the Jedi. On the bridge, Bastila, with a powerful force push, struck Revan just before the blast hit. Severely injured, Revan fell unconscious, and Bastila, torn between duty and compassion, kept him alive through the Force. She took him to the Jedi Council, who decided to erase his memories and give him a new identity as a Republic soldier. Bastila secretly kept Revan's mask, hiding it away for the future. Meanwhile, Malak declared himself the new Sith Lord and continued his assault against the Republic. The war raged on, with the Republic struggling to survive. In a desperate moment, the Jedi Council made a bold decision to use the unique bond between Revan and Bastila Shan to uncover Revan's lost memories and find a way to defeat the menacing Darth Malak. Revan, now stripped of his past and memories, was given a new identity and enlisted as an ordinary soldier in the Republic's military. Bastila, who held the crucial knowledge of his true nature, was placed in command of the Endar Spire, a cruiser on the front lines of the war. Meanwhile, Malak, determined to end the threat of Bastila's battle meditation, launched a surprise attack on the Endar Spire. Waking up to the chaos of explosions, Revan joined his bunkmate, Tross, to navigate the ship's corridors and protect Bastila. Battling through waves of Sith forces, they fought their way to the ship's bridge, only to uncover the grim truth of their mission. Bastila had already evacuated, leaving only one choice: the escape pods. As Revan and his companion reached the pod bay, they were stopped by a sealed door, with Darth Bandit, Malak's new apprentice, waiting on the other side. Realizing they couldn't both escape, Tross made a snap decision. He charged at the Sith, locking the door behind him, shouting for Revan to run, and sacrificing himself in the process. Alone, Revan was contacted by Captain Karth, a hero of the Republic. Karth, having survived the attack, tracked Revan's location and informed him that Bastila had already escaped and that he was the last one aboard. Following Karth's advice, Revan fought through the final pockets of resistance, reaching the last escape pod just in time. As the Endar Spire exploded, Revan and Karth launched their pod, though it was damaged and crash-landed in Taurus's upper city. The impact left Revan unconscious, and Karth dragged him to safety in an abandoned apartment. While Revan was unconscious, a cryptic vision haunted him, Bastila fighting a masked figure on a starship bridge. He had no memory of the vision, nor the masked figure, who was actually himself. When he woke, he urged Karth to help him find Bastila, who was being hunted by Darth Malak's forces. Taurus was under Sith lockdown, and time was running out. Revan and Karth had to find her before the Sith did. Revan and his team venture into the depths of the lower city, where two rival swoop gangs, the Black Vulkars and the Hidden Becks, control the streets. In a race against time, Revan learns that Bastila has been captured by the Vulkars, and her fate hinges on the outcome of the annual swoop race. The Hidden Becks offer Revan a chance to enter the race as their representative, but in return, he must first recover a prototype accelerator from the Vulkar base. Revan enlists the help of Mission Vio, a young Twilight, and together with her, they rescue her Wookiee companion, Zalbar, from the clutches of Gamorrean slavers. Zalbar, in gratitude, swears a life debt to Revan. With the accelerator in hand, the group infiltrates the Black Vulkar base, wins the race, but the Vulkars accuse Revan of cheating, leading to a fierce confrontation. After Bastila breaks free and the team fends off the Vulkars, Revan experiences a vision of his past and the battle that led to his capture. With the goal of escaping the Sith blockade, Revan and his allies, including the Mandalorian mercenary Canderous Ordo, hatch a daring plan to steal a fast ship, the Ebon Hawk, from the crime lord Davik Kang. To break through the blockade, they must first infiltrate the Sith base and acquire the necessary access codes. The stakes are high, and the adventure is far from over. After acquiring an advanced astromech droid, P3-M4, the group infiltrated a Sith base with the help of T3, who was the only one capable of bypassing the security. They fought off guards and managed to confront Davik himself before escaping on the Ebon Hawk. This was just in time to prevent Malak from destroying Taurus, as he had grown impatient and decided to bombard the city to kill Bastila. While the city was devastated, the Ebon Hawk and its crew survived. The crew, consisting of Revan, Bastila, Mission, Zalbar, Canderous, and T3, then traveled to the Jedi Academy on Dantooine. There, despite the Jedi Council's lingering doubts, Bastila convinced them to retrain Revan. During his training, Revan had a vision of the past, which was shared by Bastila. They both saw themselves and Malak investigating ruins on Dantooine. Revan's vision led the Council to task him with finding these ruins, further confirming Bastila's bond with him through the Force. This connection allowed them to share visions and emotions. After their meeting with the Council, Revan confronted Bastila about their bond, hinting at her flirtatious glances toward him since their first meeting. Bastila, however, dismissed it, leaving Revan with more questions about their mysterious connection. They had grown close, almost like a family, when disaster struck. As their ship sped toward Korriban, a crushing force ripped them from hyperspace and interdictor loomed, none other than the dreaded Leviathan. Its commander, the traitor who had shattered lives and betrayed the Republic, boarded their vessel and captured them all. Dragged before him, the prisoners endured torment and the grim news that the Jedi Academy had been destroyed. Before darkness claimed their senses, he sneered that his dark master was coming. Yet one ally had slipped away, returning in time to free them. With no choice but to split, the trio fought through waves of Sith to disable the tractor beam, while the others secured their ship. On the bridge, after a fierce battle, the traitor fell. Consumed by rage, one of them stood over the dying man, but was urged not to give in to hatred. With his final breath, the traitor delivered a shattering truth. Their trusted leader, the one they had followed all along, was once the very Dark Lord they sought to destroy. Shocked, betrayed, and confused, their bonds began to fracture as the weight of revelation hung heavy in the silence. As the Ebon Hawk journeyed to Korriban, disaster struck. A powerful force yanked the ship out of hyperspace, and the crew found themselves facing the Leviathan, the flagship of Admiral Saul Karath. This was no ordinary confrontation. Carth, a man who had betrayed the Republic, bombarded Telos IV, and ruined Carth's life, now stood before them. The ship was boarded, and the trio, Carth, Revan, and Bastila, were captured and brought before the man who had shattered so many lives. During their torment, Karath revealed that the Sith had nearly wiped out the Jedi Academy on Dantine and smugly hinted that Darth Malak was on his way to meet them. Meanwhile, Candaris managed to escape, freeing the trio before Malak's arrival. The crew split up to disable the tractor beam, with Revan, Bastila, and Carth fighting their way deeper into the Leviathan, taking on Sith troops and Dark Jedi. On the control bridge, they faced Admiral Karath in a fierce battle, ultimately ending his life. As Karath lay dying, he whispered a devastating truth. Revan, the very leader of their mission, was the former Dark Lord himself. Carth, stunned and consumed by rage, turned to Bastila for answers. She confirmed it, but insisted they discuss it later. Revan, caught in confusion, was left questioning everything he thought he knew. A close-knit crew, bonded like family, faced an unexpected turn of events as the Evenhawk was pulled out of hyperspace. The powerful Interdictor-class ship, the Leviathan, intercepted them. It was the flagship of Admiral Saul Karath, the man responsible for betraying the Republic and destroying Telos IV, the place that ruined Carth's life. The crew was captured, and Revan, Bastila, and Carth were brought before Karath. As they endured his cruel torture, he revealed the fall of the Jedi Academy on Dantooine and smugly informed them that Darth Malak was on his way. Candaris, who escaped before capture, freed the trio. They split up to disable the tractor beam, while the rest of the crew secured the Evenhawk. Battling Sith troops and Dark Jedi, they pressed on, determined to reach the bridge. On the bridge, Revan, Bastila, and Carth confronted Karath. After an intense battle, they killed him, but in his dying words, Karath revealed a shocking truth. Revan was the former Sith Lord. Stunned and angry, Carth demanded answers, and Bastila confirmed it. Revan, however, was left confused, torn between his past and present. Revan and his crew shared a deep bond, like a family, but things took a turn when the Evenhawk was pulled from hyperspace. An Interdictor-class ship had intercepted them, the Leviathan, the flagship of Admiral Saul Karath, the very man who had betrayed the Republic, destroyed Telos IV, and ruined Carth's life. The crew was captured, and Revan, Carth, and Bastila were brought before Saul, who revealed the Sith had nearly destroyed the Jedi Academy on Dantine. As he tortured them, he smugly informed them that Darth Malak was on his way. Meanwhile, Candaris managed to slip away and free the trio. With Malak's arrival imminent, they split up to disable the tractor beam and secure the Evenhawk. Fighting through Sith troops and Dark Jedi, Revan, Bastila, and Carth pushed deeper into the Leviathan. After a fierce battle on the bridge, they killed Admiral Karath. As Karath lay dying, he whispered a shocking truth. Revan, their leader, had once been a Sith Lord. Carth, reeling from the revelation, turned to Bastila for answers, and she confirmed it. Revan, still confused, braced for the fallout. Revan, once a brilliant Jedi, led a rebellion against the Mandalorians, only to be consumed by the dark side. As a Sith Lord, he discovered the Star Forge, an ancient weapon of unimaginable power which fueled his empire's war against the Republic. Betrayed by his apprentice, Malak, Revan was captured, stripped of his memories, and reborn as a Republic soldier. Gradually, he began to rediscover his past, torn between light and dark. His quest led him to the Star Forge, where he found the final star map, revealing the location of the forge. With his team, he battled Sith forces, and after a fierce showdown, they arrived at the forge's location only to be attacked by Sith fighters, leading to a crash on an unknown planet. Revan's journey becomes a battle for redemption, love, and sacrifice as he confronts his past and faces the eternal struggle between the light and the dark. Revan and his crew set off on their final journey to uncover the star maps. Corbin, a planet tied to Revan's past, was where he had once founded a thriving Sith Academy. Posing as a prospective Sith, Revan and his companions were granted entry, where they were told that to rise through the ranks, one must earn prestige. The final test awaited in the tomb of Naga Sada, a place Revan had once unearthed. After overcoming numerous trials, Revan succeeded in the test, discovering the last star map. This gave him the final piece needed to locate the Star Forge. However, Revan's battle wasn't just physical. He resisted the dark side's temptation, which had once consumed him. Once aboard the Ebonhawk, they set course for their destination. Upon arrival at the location revealed by the star maps, they were immediately under attack by Sith fighters. A battle ensued, causing the Ebonhawk to crash on a nearby planet, its systems damaged and the crew stranded. Revan, a former Jedi prodigy turned Sith Lord, embarks on a relentless journey of redemption and self-discovery. Once a hero of the Mandalorian Wars, his brilliance led him down a dark path, shaping him into the powerful Darth Revan. Betrayed by his own apprentice, Malak, Revan is captured and stripped of his memories, reborn as a soldier of the Republic. Alongside his companions, he begins to rediscover his past and confront the dark side that once consumed him. His search for the elusive Starforge leads him through treacherous challenges, where he faces his own inner turmoil and battles Sith acolytes. Ultimately, Revan uncovers the secrets of the Starforge, confronts his fallen mentor, and must choose between the light and the dark. With his identity rediscovered, Revan strives to protect the galaxy, all while grappling with his legacy and the echoes of his past action. A journey of love, sacrifice, and redemption. Revan's story leaves a lasting impact, shaping the fate of the galaxy for generations to come. Revan and his team were stranded, with their ship grounded until they could salvage replacement parts. As they ventured into the wild to gather what they needed, they crossed paths with the Elder Rakotan tribe, who revealed a shocking truth about Revan's past betrayal. Years ago, he and Malak had promised to destroy the Starforge but failed to follow through. Revan, still without memory of his past, sought redemption and asked for their trust once more. The tribe agreed to help him, but only if he proved himself. His trial? To rescue a captured scout from the Black Rakata. Revan and his companions fought their way through the enemy's stronghold, battling fierce tribespeople and ultimately freeing the scout. With his success, the tribe agreed to proceed with the ritual to deactivate the Temple of the Ancients' defenses. However, because of his past transgressions, Revan was told he would have to face the temple alone. But his friends, Jolee and Janny, insisted on joining him, sensing he would need their help. Reluctantly, the Elder allowed it, and the trio entered the temple. As they ascended to the temple summit to disable the disruptor field, they encountered a shocking figure, Bastila Shan. Now corrupted by the dark side and apprenticed to Malak, she awaited their arrival, wielding a red lightsaber. She mocked Revan's fall from power, reminding him of his former glory as a Dark Lord, now reduced to a Jedi preaching forgiveness and selflessness. Revan was heartbroken, witnessing the woman he once cared for twisted by the very darkness he had once embraced. In the heart of the galaxy's war, Revan, once a brilliant Jedi, found himself entangled in a powerful and tragic bond with Bastila. Their connection, once a symbol of hope, began to crumble as Bastila, under the relentless influence of Malak, succumbed to the dark side. Though Revan attempted to remind her of their past, of the bond they had shared through every battle, Bastila dismissed it, refusing to hear his pleas. The final clash between them was inevitable, and despite Revan's victory, he could not bring himself to end her life. Instead, he urged her to return to the light. But Bastila, determined in her fall, escaped, leaving Revan torn and unable to save her. His journey continued, however, with his crew by his side as they faced the looming threat of the Starforge. As the battle for the galaxy's fate grew near, the crew stood firm, supporting Revan in his next steps, even as the shadows of betrayal and the hope for redemption hung heavily in the air. Revan, still struggling with the bond he shared with Bastila, could feel the weight of her transformation. Her decision to fall to the dark side was painful, a consequence of Malak's manipulation. Despite Revan's desperate plea, reminding her of their shared history, Bastila was resolute in her new path. The duel that followed saw Revan and his companions triumph, but rather than delivering a fatal blow, Revan once again urged her to return to the light. Bastila, however, dismissed their bond and insisted that Revan's victory had come from the dark side. With no choice but to watch her escape, Revan turned his focus to the mission at hand. Back aboard the Ebonhawk, the crew, disheartened by the loss of Bastila, rallied around Revan. Jolee, ever the voice of reason, reminded him of the connection they shared, insisting that their bond could still reach her. Together, they set their course for the Starforge, knowing that the final battle was upon them through the bond of love and redemption. Revan revealed to Bastila the truth of their shared connection, showing her that even the darkest paths could lead back to the light. His confession of love broke through the wall she had built, and for the first time, she admitted her own feelings for him. Despite the torment of keeping secrets from him, she chose to pull herself from the darkness and support the Republic, remaining behind to guide the fleet with her battle meditation. Meanwhile, Revan pressed on to face Malak, his former apprentice, who now recognized Revan's transformation into a far more powerful figure. Malak, filled with disdain, knew that only a final duel would end their fates. As their battle raged, Revan's strength pushed Malak onto the defensive. But Malak, desperate, revealed the full might of the Starforge in an attempt to turn the tide. In the heart of the Starforge, Malak drew power from the captured Jedi, siphoning their life force to fuel his own. He taunted Revan, claiming to have unlocked the full potential of the Forge, while Revan struggled to remember it all. Despite Malak's advantage, Revan continued the fight with unyielding resolve, cutting down the capsules containing the Jedi bodies to stop Malak from replenishing his strength. As the battle raged on outside, their duel escalated across the station's viewing platform. With one final, devastating strike, Revan mortally wounded Malak. As Malak collapsed, gasping for breath, he questioned what might have been if he had been captured by the Jedi instead of Revan. Kneeling beside him, Revan expressed sorrow for the path Malak had chosen, but reminded him that his choices were always his own. With his last words, Malak admitted that perhaps ruling the galaxy was never his fate, and that destiny had always been meant for Revan. As the darkness overtook him, Malak died, leaving Revan standing alone. Though he could not remember their past, a deep sadness stirred within him as he looked down at his fallen friend. Revan extinguished his lightsaber and left the scene, his mind heavy with the weight of what had transpired. After the Starforge's destruction, Revan and his companions were hailed as heroes. The Republic fleet, with Bastila's battle meditation, had overwhelmed the Sith forces, leading to the Starforge's collapse in a blaze of glory. As the Ebon Hawk made its way back to Lihan, it was met by Republic fighters, and the crew was celebrated for their bravery. At the Temple of the Ancients, Revan was honored with the Cross of Glory, the Republic's highest military distinction, and was formally recognized as a Jedi Knight again, honored as the Jedi's prodigal knight. The Republic had won the war, but Master Vandar reminded Revan that the galaxy would always need the wisdom and strength of the Jedi. With the end of the Jedi Civil War, the Sith forces would soon be eliminated, leaving the Republic to rebuild. Revan and his companions stood together, their journey complete, as the battle over the Starforge had marked the end of an era. Revan, once a prodigious Jedi, had seen his empire crumble, but the remnants of the Sith still lingered. Determined, he personally removed them from their place in Sith history. Soon after, the Jedi Council offered to retrain him fully in the Jedi ways, but Revan, having surpassed their teachings, declined. He had already learned both the light and the dark sides of the Force. Bastila, his partner, was offered the same chance and turned it down as well. Their bond grew stronger, culminating in their decision to marry, much to the discomfort of the Jedi Council. Revan, celebrating their union, drank heavily that night, suffering a lingering hangover. Their love, which had helped them both rise from the edge of darkness, was seen as a strength, not a weakness. Revan believed that love and passion could enhance a Jedi's connection to the Force. When he approached the Council with this insight, they rejected his views, and some even called for his expulsion. But his status as a war hero prevented a full banishment, and instead, a compromise was made. Revan and Bastila could remain in the Order, but Revan was forbidden from spreading his philosophies. Bastila was furious. After the Council's decision, Revan urged his companion to let it go, insisting it wasn't worth fighting. They soon retreated to an apartment on Coruscant, seeking a peaceful life. Revan earned the title of Jedi Master, though his connection with the Order was strained. After his victory over Malak on the Starforge, fragments of his old memories resurfaced, but they remained elusive. One memory involved his former general from the Mandalorian Wars, Mitrarik. Despite his efforts to reach out through the Force, her presence remained absent, leaving him uneasy. He shaved his beard, discarded his Jedi robes in public, and embraced anonymity, with only his droids, T3, M4, and HK-47, by his side. But peace didn't last long. In 3954 BBBY, 2 years after Malak's defeat, Revan began to suffer vivid nightmares of a storm-covered, ominous world. Each night, the darkness seemed to grow, and the dread followed him into waking hours. After 3 consecutive nights, Revan quietly rose, washed up, and stepped out onto the balcony, where he tried to gather his thoughts. Bastila sensed his turmoil and joined him. They shared a quiet moment, discussing the strange dreams that haunted him. The next morning, Revan contacted Canderous Ordo to meet at the Dealer's Den Cantina. When they finally met, Ordo was enjoying a private dance. Revan asked about the Mandalorian Wars, seeking answers. Revan, troubled by recurring dreams, suspected they were tied to the Mandalorian Wars and the dark path he and his ally had walked. Doubting Mandalore, the ultimate true motives for igniting the war, he sensed the shadow of something more sinister. With plans in motion, he sent Ordo to gather information from Mandalorian clans. After a brief respite from his nightmares, Revan, disguised in hooded robes to avoid unwanted attention, visited the Jedi Temple and searched the archives for any mention of Sarirk. There, he uncovered unsettling truths, including Sarirk's severance from the Force and self-exile. Shortly after, Canderous contacted Revan, revealing that while he had no news about the Stormworld, he had discovered that several Mandalorian clans were gathering on Rayad, searching for Mandalore, the Ultimate's lost mask. A sudden flash of memory confirmed the theory, and Revan knew his next move was clear. Revan was faced with a critical decision as he grappled with his past, the weight of the galaxy, and his personal future. Ordo proposed a reunion of their old companions, but Revan dismissed the idea, as many were already occupied with their own paths. Returning to his apartment, he found Bastila watching holovids, and, before he could speak, she revealed that she was pregnant. Shocked, Revan realized he hadn't sensed the child's presence through the Force. Despite the joy of the revelation, his mission remained his priority. He told Bastila he had to leave to confront the darkness, a decision that angered her. She challenged his choice, but he convinced her that he was doing it for their child's future, wanting to protect them from the wars that had shaped their own lives. Though she begged to accompany him, Revan refused, determined to shield her and the unborn child from danger. They shared one final night together before she saw him off the next day. As Revan boarded the ship with T3 and Canderous, he left behind the life he had built, stepping into the unknown once again, driven by the shadows of his past. On the frozen world of Rayad, a group of mercenaries crashes after their landing gear is damaged. While one stays behind to repair the ship, the others trek through the snow to join a Mandalorian clan. There, Revan hides his true identity from the clan, who despise Jedi. Despite the tension, he earns their trust after a brutal battle against a rival clan. Guided by strange dreams, Revan convinces the Mandalorians to move camp to a new location, where he believes answers about an ancient Mandalorian artifact lie. As they journey to the Twin Spears, they face more dangers, but Revan's growing abilities and leadership inspire those around him. However, beneath the surface, not everyone is at peace with his presence, especially the clan leader, who harbors a deep fury despite her calm exterior. Revan stood before the tomb, memories of the Mandalorian Wars flooding back. He and his former ally, now enemy, Malak, had ventured here to retrieve crucial items. Upon reaching the tomb on Drama 2, Revan grabbed Mandalore's mask and a datacron, only to be ambushed by 6 armed figures. VA, one of the attackers, revealed she knew Revan's true identity as both a Jedi and the Republic's greatest enemy. She begged Canderous to join her in killing him, but Canderous refused, instead shooting VA through the heart in a moment of chaos. Revan quickly dealt with the remaining Mandalorians, and together with Canderous, they laid their fallen enemies to rest before sleeping in the tomb. During the night, Revan's memories fully returned, bringing clarity on the Sith's manipulation of the Mandalorian Wars and the next clue hidden on Nathema. He asked Canderous to don the Mandalore mask and lead the clans to defend the Republic. Canderous agreed, and they parted ways. Revan and T3 then set course for Nathema. Upon arrival, Revan was overwhelmed by a flood of painful memories, but as the storm cleared, he realized he had been here before. Before he could reflect further, T3's panic beeping brought him back to the present. In the cockpit, the astromech warned of another ship approaching fast. Before Revan could react, an ion blast struck and the power went out, sending the freighter into a spiraling descent toward Nathema. Despite his efforts, the ship crashed, and Revan was knocked unconscious. The attackers Two Sith Lords, Darth Nihus and Lord Scourge, had been watching his arrival. Nihus ordered Scourge to retrieve Revan, who was then taken aboard their ship. Upon seeing him, Nihus immediately recognized Revan as the legendary Jedi and saw potential in him, believing his resistance to the Sith Emperor's influence could be useful. They imprisoned Revan, isolating and drugging him to sever his connection to the Force. When he awoke in chains, Nihus and Scourge interrogated him, demanding information about the Republic and the Emperor's mind control, but Revan remained silent. The Sith tortured him relentlessly, but Revan endured, refusing to break. In the depths of captivity, Revan endured a relentless barrage of torment, his strength unyielding. Nihus grew bored of the prisoner within the first weeks, but Scourge remained transfixed. The Sith Lord became captivated by Revan's unwavering resilience, slowly transforming their sessions into intellectual exchanges. Over 3 years of confinement, with only the barest essentials to sustain him, Revan's physical form thinned, and although the Force suppressants wore him down, his spirit remained unbroken. His hope for rescue faded with time, replaced by a sharp clarity. Through subtle manipulations, Revan began feeding Scourge fragments of Jedi philosophy in exchange for insight into the Sith Empire, learning of the Emperor's plans to invade the Republic. Revan's subtle attempts to align himself with Scourge's opposition to the Emperor were met with mockery. Yet he stood firm, bluffing boldly. Revan claimed a vision from the Force, one that foretold his escape. Intrigued yet skeptical, Scourge demanded more. Revan's cryptic reply echoed in the air. "You will understand in time." In a twist of fate, Scourge, unsettled by the events, departed. Alone once again, Revan meditated, reaching out with what little access to the Force remained. He sought Bastila, but instead, a vision of Mitraric appeared, her face clear and determined, confirming the inevitable Mitraric was coming for him. Meanwhile, guided by T3M4, who had returned to the Republic after repairing the Ebonhawk, Sir traced Revan's path to Drummond Copse. Disguised as a mercenary, she infiltrated the city, uncovering Scourge's identity through the droid's data. She made contact with him, leaving him bewildered. Revan's vision had become reality, and Scourge, still in disbelief, agreed to assist Sir in freeing Revan. Together, they planned to topple the Emperor, with Scourge devising a plan to infiltrate Nihus's fortress by presenting Sir as his new slave. He also tipped off the Emperor about Nihus's treacherous plot to divert attention. As explosions rocked the fortress, Revan, initially confused, realized Sir was behind the chaos. She freed him from his cell, and their reunion was brief before Scourge appeared. Overcome by the suppressing drugs, Revan collapsed. Scourge administered the antidote, while Sir handed Revan his old Mandalorian mask, preserved by Bastila. The moment he touched the mask, his lost memories flooded back, overwhelming him as the floodgates of the past opened. Revan's mind shattered under the intense pressure, and he collapsed to the floor. Surik and Scourge exchanged confused glances, but before they could react further, T3M4 signaled an incoming presence. A moment later, Darth Nihus stormed in. Scourge and Surik attempted to fight, but Nihus easily overwhelmed them. Summoning a violent storm of Force lightning, she prepared to strike them down, confident of her victory. But just as she was about to finish them, Revan stirred back to life. Nihus, sure of her superiority, taunted him, claiming her place on the Dark Council and the countless worlds she had conquered. She declared that she would be his doom. Revan, unfazed, calmly responded, "I am Revan reborn, and before me, you are nothing." With that, he raised his hands, absorbed her lightning, and hurled it back at her, disintegrating her instantly. Scourge, in awe of the power Revan wielded, handed him a lightsaber, and the trio fled the stronghold. They took refuge in a cave where Scourge and Surik had once met in secret. While Scourge went to gather supplies, Surik took the chance to show Revan a hollow recording from T3. It was Bastila, holding their son, Vaynor. The young boy, now 3, waved happily at the camera, and Bastila's simple message expressed how much they missed him on his birthday. Revan, touched, smiled at the sight of their son, amused by the boy's name and anagram of his own. As the video ended, he thanked Surik and asked if she would watch it with him again. She agreed, and they shared the moment. Hours later, Scourge returned, and T3 ended the projection as Revan stood to greet him. Scourge reported that the Emperor had wiped out all 12 members of the Dark Council and declared martial law. Revan, now with a clear mind, recounted how he and Malak had been led into a trap and had their minds shattered by their mysterious captor. The group discussed the Emperor's ritual on Athema and whether it could be attempted again on Kos. While they agreed it was unlikely, they all knew that killing the Emperor was their only hope. As they prepared for the confrontation, Sarik meditated while Revan replayed a hollow recording. Scourge interrupted him, seeking to understand the visions of the Force. Revan admitted his earlier claim was a bluff, but soon confessed a true vision had come to him. They spoke through the night, and Revan accepted his fate, acknowledging it might not be his destiny to stop the Emperor. His purpose now was to ensure the future for his son and the Republic, not for glory, but out of love and protection. Scourge, intrigued by Revan's selflessness, couldn't imagine doing the same for anyone. As dawn arrived, Revan, T3-M4, Mitrarik, and Lord Scourge departed the cave and made their way to Cass City. The cold morning air swept over them as Revan sat lost in thought, contemplating the ongoing struggle between light and dark that had defined his entire life. Having walked both paths, he now stood between them, ready for whatever would come next. Revan, once a brilliant Jedi, now embraces both the light and dark sides of the Force, growing stronger for it. Arriving at the Imperial Citadel, he takes the lead with Scourge, demanding an audience with the Emperor. Inside, they are confronted by Captain Yari, who recognizes Revan and reaches for her weapon. A fierce battle ensues, with Revan swiftly overpowering Yari. As the team advances toward the throne room, Revan uses the Force to obliterate the doors, charging in to confront the Emperor. The battle rages on, with Revan and his allies cutting through guards, collapsing stone archways to delay reinforcements. Finally, Revan faces the Emperor, prepared to ignore his words and take decisive action. Fully aware of the gravity of the moment, Scourge's moment of betrayal stunned everyone. With the Emperor's vision guiding him, he did what no one expected. He struck Surik down. In that fateful instant, Revan was thrown into a whirlwind of shock and loss. His friend, the one he trusted, was now gone, her body falling to the floor as Revan felt her life slip away. But before he could act, the Emperor's lightning sent him into unconsciousness. To test Scourge's loyalty, the Emperor demanded Revan's life. Yet Scourge hesitated, sparing him instead and sending him to a secret prison. There, Revan was suspended in stasis, barely clinging to life, while the Emperor drained his strength to feed his own dark ambitions. But Revan, though physically broken, was unyielding. With the help of Sarik's Force Ghost, he kept the Emperor's probing mind at bay, subtly distorting the Emperor's plans and feeding him false information. For 300 years, Revan resisted, delaying the Emperor's invasion, and in that time, his son grew and the Republic endured. Scourge had seen the path laid out by the Force, but nothing could prepare him for the cost of his actions. In a moment of betrayal, he struck from behind, driving his lightsaber into Surik's back, leaving Revan in stunned disbelief as his friend fell. Before Revan could process the horror, the Emperor's deadly bolt of lightning knocked him unconscious. The Emperor, testing Scourge's loyalty, commanded him to end Revan's life. But instead, Scourge spared him, ordering Revan's imprisonment instead. Across the galaxy, Revan was taken to a secret facility within the Maelstrom Nebula, where he was suspended in stasis between life and death. The Emperor sought to feed off Revan's strength, hoping to delve deeper into the Republic's secrets, but the Jedi's will remained unbroken. Even in his weakened state, Revan used their connection to deceive the Emperor, feeding him false intelligence that stalled the invasion of the Republic. For 3 long centuries, Revan's resistance delayed the Emperor's plans, his mind constantly at war as his son grew up and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The galaxy was at peace. His mission was complete. He had given his son a peaceful life, fulfilling his role as protector. His son continued the family legacy, which included many Jedi, including a powerful figure who would one day become the youngest Grand Master of the Jedi Order. But as centuries passed, Revan's mind began to fracture. The Dreadmasters, who kept him captive, tortured him, attempting to mold him into a servant for the Emperor. Yet Revan endured. The myth of Revan persisted. On a distant world, an order grew, worshipping Revan and his philosophy of balance between light and dark. They saw him as both a savior and martyr, a being reborn through every trial. These followers, the Revanites, built shrines in his honor, believing that Revan had become the Emperor himself. They were mistaken, yet not entirely. Revan remained, broken but unyielding, waiting for the moment he would rise again. The war raged on, the Sith Empire invading the Republic, igniting a galactic conflict. Despite the chaos, Revan's influence endured from within the Emperor's mind. Through this influence, the Sith Emperor eventually chose to halt the war, resulting in a fragile peace. But peace was fleeting, and soon, the Emperor sought to complete a dark ritual that threatened all life in the galaxy. Revan's final battle is nothing short of legendary. An elite Imperial strike team infiltrates his sanctum, battling through fierce defenses and eventually confronting Revan himself. Masked and wielding a violet lightsaber, Revan declares that the Emperor's death is his burden alone. A furious duel ensues, with Revan unleashing lightning and debris in an effort to stop them. Despite his immense power, the Sith forces overwhelm him, and as death claims him, Revan echoes the words of his former ally, Malak. In that moment, he realizes the galaxy has continued to suffer, and he has failed. With a flash of violet energy, Revan disappears, leaving behind his legacy. But death is not the end. Revan's soul, divided between light and dark, struggles to find peace. His dark side, driven by hatred and centuries of torment, takes control, using his remaining strength to rise again. Revan reclaims the Revanites, transforming them into a fanatical force loyal only to him, and his quest for vengeance against the Emperor begins anew. After an elite Imperial strike team infiltrated the facility, they fought through its defenses and finally destroyed HK 47-inch, the generator chamber. As they entered Revan's sanctum, he confronted them with his mask on, igniting his violet lightsaber. He declared that the Emperor's death was his burden alone. A fierce duel broke out. Revan summoned lightning and hurled debris, fiercely battling the team. Yet, despite his power, Revan was ultimately overpowered. Mortally wounded, he lay dying, echoing the words of his fallen friend, understanding his pain. As darkness consumed him, Revan realized he had failed. His influence on the galaxy was now over. In a flash of violet energy, he vanished. Revan's dark half, refusing to let go, reawakened after his death. Free of weakness, it sought only revenge on the Emperor. With the dark side's power, Revan regained control over his followers, rebuilding them into a fanatical order loyal only to him with a new purpose: to destroy the Emperor at any cost. Revan's journey is one of power, betrayal, and redemption. After discovering the ancient Starforge, he uses its power to create an army of soldiers capable of healing rapidly and growing stronger. However, his plans are halted when a Republic Imperial strike team destroys the project. Despite this setback, Revan remains determined to end the Emperor, only to discover that the Emperor has already been defeated by another. In his obsession, Revan attempts to bring the Emperor back to life in a final ritual, but his plan is thwarted by a united coalition of Republic and Sith forces. As he prepares for the ritual, Revan is confronted by a spirit of his light half, who reveals that the dark side of Revan is incomplete. In a fierce battle, the ritual is destroyed, and Revan retreats to the Emperor's final sanctuary, where he makes his last stand. Despite being outnumbered, he holds his ground against those who confront him, including his descendants. Ultimately, Revan's battle is won not just for power, but for his own soul's final reconciliation. After a fierce battle, they finally brought him down. As Revan lay defeated, a chilling laugh echoed from the Emperor, mocking his failure. The chaos of the battle had empowered the Emperor's spirit, allowing him to escape and vanish from the planet. Revan, consumed by rage and crushed by yet another defeat, saw his darker side spiral out of control. In that moment, his lighter half emerged, urging him to release his anger and find peace. Reluctantly, the dark Revan surrendered, and the two halves of his being merged, united in mind and soul. In that final act, Revan disappeared, becoming one with the Force. All that remained were his mask and his violet lightsaber. Even after death, Revan's influence endured. During the Third Galactic War, his spirit guided the Outlander, the commander of the Eternal Alliance, and his former ally, Scourge. In the climactic battle within the Outlander's mind against Darth Vish, Revan's and Cirque's spirits aided in the Emperor's ultimate defeat. With Vish's fall, Revan found the peace he had sought for so long and at last became one with the Force.